All right, I think we're going to begin, just so that we're respectful for all of your time. I just want to thank you all for joining today. So we're going to be going on a virtual chocolate experience today. Hope everybody's doing well, given the situation. This is kind of like the best time to do these types of events. And so with that, I'm going to just show if you're seeing the, all right, let me just double check. You should be seeing the slides change. All right, I'm just going to unshare and then reshare. Okay. All right. So here we go. Here we go. All right. So here's a little agenda of what we're going to be talking about and experiencing today. So so a couple of ground rules first. We'll get into that, and then we'll get related. We'll talk about some foundational information around chocolate and cacao. We'll talk through the chocolate making process, touch on chocolate packaging and how that, as a consumer, is very important. And we'll go through the 4 chocolate bars, and then we'll wrap it up. And so want to just move on. So basically, I want to just give a little bit of overview around who I am. I may not know all of you, but we may have crossed paths at some point with some chocolate event or one or the other. I'm Glenn Petriello, and I am the founder and owner of Chocotastery. So we are a chocolate education and tasting experience company. So that means that we are providing virtual experiences for people who enjoy chocolate, love chocolate, and try to give them a little bit more information around the fundamentals of how it's made, and then intertwine that with chocolate tasting fundamentals, and then put it all together and apply those during the second half of the tasting, and to better develop and appreciate the entire process from origin all the way through to the final bar that we taste today. So that's a little bit about me. You could always check out more about me on my website, chocotastery.com, but that's all good for now. So I want to just throw around a little bit of a couple of different ground rules, just so that we are a small crowd here today. So if you want to share something, you could totally use the Zoom chat feature. That's totally fine. However, if you want to share, turning your mic off mute, that's totally fine. We are a small enough crowd that I think that'll be really great to do, to just getting further engaged with each other. And so I wanted to just kind of go through each of you, if you'd like to share a little bit about who you are, your name, and then why did you sign up for today's class, and where are you from too, if you want to share that. So if anybody wants to start, go right ahead. Mark?
My name is Mark. Let's see. There, can you hear me okay now?
We're good.
You can? Good. Good. My name is Mark Rose. I'm a chocolate maker out of Colorado. I'm currently at a shop right now doing a chocolate tasting, trying to increase my chocolate sales. So I may have to step away every now and again to tend to a customer, but that's why my background is constantly changing. Yeah, I'm interested in the class just because I want to know more about what other people are tasting, and I know what I like in chocolate, but I want to hear like what other people's opinions are because I have to make chocolate for other people as well as myself. So while I like making it for myself, I also want to pay attention to what other people see and find and what they enjoy.
Great. Awesome. Thanks for joining. Todd or Wendy, would you like to share?
Yeah, hi, I'm Todd Durr, here with my wife Amy. We are from Pittsburgh, and we were in Brooklyn last year and wandered into Cacao over by the Brooklyn Brewery, or either there or by the distillery, I can't remember. And so we did the earlier event that you did with them earlier this year, and
Awesome.
it was interesting. So signed up for this one.
Great. Thanks for coming and joining.
Hi, we're in Los Angeles, and we just enjoy the chocolates. We found you through letterpress, so
Awesome. Yeah.
yeah, nothing overly exciting here, other than being here for the chocolate tasting. At least about us, nothing overly exciting.
Awesome. Great to have you guys. Yeah,
Thank you.
we will be tasting another letterpress today, which is always a great thing. All right. So I'm not sure why my screen, there we go. All right. I'm going to go backwards. Sorry. All right. All right. So we did that. And so just a little bit of around the fundamentals. So I know maybe Mark, you may already know all this or a lot of it already, but just bear with us. I usually just share a little bit about these upcoming topics, and then Wendy and Todd and companies. This is just some further great fundamental information around chocolate. So the first question I want to pose to everybody is, where does chocolate come from? So if you want to throw it in the chat or just unmute yourself, go right ahead. Just throw it out there. Where does chocolate come from? Where do you think chocolate comes from? Yes, Todd. I see you unmuted.
I was just saying beans.
Yeah, cacao beans. Yep. So it's an agricultural product. And so we'll learn a little bit more about how it's grown and where shortly. But it basically it's grown within the tropical belt of the world, right, around the earth. And so it's plus or minus 20 degrees of the equator. It has to be very tropical. And so we'll look at pictures of a live cacao pod. I also have a prop one here. So we'll get to that in a few moments. But what are the typical ingredients that you find in chocolate, right? So when you pick up a chocolate bar like this one, right? What are the typical ingredients that we look at? We look at what's the cocoa content, right? The chocolate liquor is how we in the industry just name it. And then we also have a sugar component and maybe an additional amount of cocoa butter. There's also some chocolate makers may add in an emulsifier like soy lecithin. It helps with the viscosity of the chocolate. But typically in a craft chocolate bar, you're finding 2 or 3 ingredients. And so that's where we want to pay attention to today. And so what gives cacao its flavor? And so there's very few, there's several different variables in process-wise. And so when we talk about where that flavor originates from, we look at, like, we can compare to ourselves, right? We all have different DNA. We all come from different places. We all, like our parents and our grandparents and our great grandparents, we're all coming from different areas. and have our own rich history, right? So that's the same thing with cacao. So we may see that specific origin may come from different areas. The atmosphere around the chocolate, what's going on at each farm or cooperative, that is actually affecting the flavor. So we have the DNA, the varieties. There's a couple different varieties. Criollo is the oldest variety, and then we have the Forastero, and then we have the Trinitario, and then a couple others intermingled with that, and they're mostly hybrids. So we'll get into a little bit more about that later. But in general, I want to just pose the question: what is craft chocolate? That is a term that is not well defined. There's no one right answer that's kind of clearly laid out for anybody. Craft chocolate to me is, when there's a craft chocolate maker who is paying close attention to each step of the process. And with that, we're able to showcase the beans as they are from origin, and then put our spin and our kind of our method of like putting their twist and their philosophy and the characteristics they want to highlight. They want to bring that out to the forefront. So that's what they're going to do. And then, they want to highlight that story, that journey from origin. So, so with that being said, let's move on to giving you an idea. Okay, we don't know why it's not showing up. There we go. All right, so this is a map that shows the equator and then 20 degrees above and below it. And so you can see this is a moment in time. So you see fine and flavor beans and bulky beans. That's like that purplish color. So you see a lot of that in Mexico and Brazil. Bulk beans are mostly in the African area. So like 12, 18, and 4. It's kind of like the the Ivory Coast, Cameroon, Ghana area. And then we have fine flavored cacao is the green. So it's like Latin America, part of South America, and then in areas around 21, which is Madagascar, that's kind of like off the African coast. And they're scattered around too within Asia. And so this is kind of just the picture. It's a generalization. There is more fine flavored cacao growing in some of these places where there may not be, where there may be bulk, where it's colored red, for instance. And we'll get to that in a second with, when we start tasting chocolate later on, we'll see that, there's fine flavored cacao in Ghana, in the Ivory Coast, in Cameroon, just as examples. Okay. All right, so we're going to get into the chocolate making process, and I hope my my iPad cooperates here. All right, so this is I had worked with Indie Chocolate for about 7 or 8 months back in 2017 to 2018. So I have a couple of pictures of content that I used from there. And so this is just a chocolate refiner. It's could make 100 pounds of chocolate. It was the fun refiner that I got to use while in at Pike Place Market. So first step in the process is growing cacao. So as you see here are photos from, on the left, we have from Vietnam. You can see cacao pods. They grow on trees that are basically a couple meters high. They take quite some time to grow and mature. And so when we get to the stage where cacao pods are growing, it does take some time for them to fully grow and ripen. And so these are seedlings, and it's really cool just how they sit so small on a tree and then become like football size. And so on the right, there's pods from Costa Rica, and you can see how just there's just super small ones, and then the purple ones are like getting bigger and bigger as time goes on. And so here are some more photos. So the left one is from Guatemala, Ashavite, and the top right, they are from Peru, Ucayali River region. And then the bottom right is the same. There are some other pods, and I've worked with Good Now Farms, and they've were gracious to share some photos of their trips, some of their origin trips. So I have some content from them, as well as letterpress as well later on. So this is a picture of a cacao pod, fresh cacao pod from Ecuador. And so I want to just pay close attention to some aspects of this. So you can see there's a white pulp-like surrounding around what looks like seeds, right? These are cacao seeds that are within each, they're all attached to a placenta, a center piece. And so that pulp is called mucilage. And so that like you could actually taste that pulp. It's very it's not like chocolate. It's very fruity, kind of like a lychee or like a lemonade type fruit flavor profile. And so you'll see how the beans are attached to it. And you could, once you cut that open, you could technically just eat those beans, those seeds as is. Then there's the pod around it, which we really don't eat. It's unedible, but could be used for mulch, and kind of just to keep it on the ground in the farms. And so here is a demo pod, right? This is kind of the size. It's kind of football size, and this one is wood. It's not a fresh one, but you can tell how the pod has a little branch still stuck to it. This is so that when farmers harvest and they cut off the pods from the tree, they don't hurt the pod itself. Because if you nick the pod or cut the pod in some way, it may incur bacteria to grow and further disease. So we want to make sure that we're not that whenever a cacao farmer is harvesting, they cut it with enough space. And then obviously this is reminiscent of the seeds inside the pulp. All right. Okay, yeah. All right, so the next step, if it goes, sorry, I'm having some difficulty. This is the first time I'm using my iPad for sharing. I thought it would be helpful, but here we go. All right, so when a farmer goes to harvest, they need to collect the pods from the trees, and they break them open, right? They have to break it open so they can get to the seeds. And so they use big machetes, like the one that the guy has in that he's holding in his arm. And this one is this is based in the Ucayali region in Peru. So he's already opened up that there, but we have a video clip here of him actually cutting it open. So it's pretty cool how you can see how they're all connected, and it's the fresh mucilage. It's not, oh, there's not a lot of mucilage on that right now. It varies, but yeah, you could literally take those seeds and eat them. And so this is another video clip of one of the cacao experts who works with various origins to help them ferment and dry. His name is Dan O'Doherty. And so I have a video of him that you'll see in Ecuador with the Goodnow Farms team and the one of the owners of the Costa Esmeraldas farm. And so they're going around and they're going to open up a pod for you.
So what are we doing, Dan? Harvesting one of the few pods we have hanging around here, so we can taste it. Yeah. And this time of year, the seeds are a little bit smaller, kind of the very end of the harvest season. A little less pulp in general.
Yep. Not as juicy as earlier.
Mm-hmm. Well,
All right. So yeah, so you can see it's pretty much you could open up a pod, banging it on a rock, which is like the interesting part about it. When pods are so close to the ground that you don't have to technically use a machete or like a smaller knife. You could actually just twist and turn it. And obviously he's based out of Hawaii, one of the only states in the United States where they can commercially grow and harvest cacao. And so he's got a lot of experience helping others, and he's got some tricks up there too, down there in the West. So next, so that after they collect all of the cacao, right, they take out all the seeds from the pods. They put them into, you have to bring them into the next step, which is fermentation. So these are fermentation boxes that are based in Nicaragua, in El Carmen. And so there's various different methods of fermentation. Usually the process lasts about 5 to 7 days based on the origin and their procedure. There's different types. So these are just boxes that could hold several hundred pounds of beans at a time. And basically every day you'd have to move one box's contents to the next. And basically this process is pretty complex. However, the main gist of it is there's you have your cacao pot, your cacao seeds. They're covered with jute bag and banana leaves that you can see in the foreground picture box with the green leaves. You basically could, you have to keep it closed so that the temperature could rise. Yeast and bacteria kind of commingle and react with each other. They form ethanol, lactic and acetic acids. And so basically a very potent aroma, kind of like an alcohol aroma, kind of forms. And so so every day it's turned. And here's another video in the next. Sorry, 1 second. So this is. I don't know why this is giving me some problems right now. Um, just bear with me 1 second. I'm just gonna stop sharing for a moment. And I'm just going to share the actual file on my computer. Sorry about that. It's just not working right, even though I tested it and it was fine. All right. Okay, so we are right here. All right, so this is a video of farmers. So cooperatives have to collect. They basically buy wet cacao from all the farmers in the area who have farms who've grown their cacao. So they put it into these bins. And so they'll continue doing this. They'll fill it up, they'll cover it, and then they, so in the next slide here, this is what happens. They cover it with banana leaves, and then they'll put jute bag on top. So this is a video from the Ukiah region where they actually, they do this. There's about 7 or so bins. So each day they're scooping it out, moving to the next box, and adding in more cacao as it goes around. So this is just a little time lapse to make sure it's all even, and they want to make sure that everything, all of the temperatures, that there's no outside air going in, that they keep everything nice and tight in there. You see they're now moving from one bin to the next. So you can see how labor intensive it is. There's hundreds of pounds of beans that they're moving every day in one box to the next to the next. And so this box is next. Now you can see how this is the jute bag that they had on top of it. And originally the setup is with the Ukiah jute bags right on top. So this is a cool time lapse of those massive banana leaves, which help, they give off a certain enzyme, which helps keep the heat in and to initiate all of the reactions that actually happen. You see the jute bag is going on top, and so then they move on to the next step. So after 7 days, roughly, we need to dry the beans. So there's a lot of moisture in there, and so when the beans are drying, we want to be making sure that they're not clumped together. So as you see, these are just drying beds. They're kind of like midway up. They're not super high, super low, but they have like a mesh underneath it. And so this is a picture of the drying beds out in Nicaragua, coming from the same group before. And so they'll use their hands to make sure that the beans are, they're moving around but that they're not being stuck together as well. And then obviously there's the mesh underneath it where any moisture, any pulp that's still around the beans, that it could get air from the bottom and dry off as well. And we're looking for a moisture range of around 7 or 8% in order for the beans to get bagged up and shipped out. And so these are massive drying beds in Esmeraldas, Ecuador. And so this is Freddie Salazar. He's a part of the Salazar family. And they built these massive beds that they can move in and out based on the whether or not it's raining or if it's like overcast or whatever. And you see how, you know, there you could see any small pieces will fall out on the bottom. They want to make sure that there's no clumping as well. And so they do that by breaking it. And this is one of the team members using like I don't even know what the name of that is, but it looks like a rake, but it's like a cacao rake. So that's what I'm calling it. And so they just keep turning it, messing around with it every so often. And so the moisture, the heat could dry up. It's kind of like your daily workout is just moving those beans. It seems. So after the moisture content is decreased and they're ready to go, they're happy with the after their testing is complete, they ship them out in jute bags. So this is a bag of, I believe it's around like 60 kilo, around 132 pounds or so. This is from La Colonia in Nicaragua. This is a bag that we worked with at Indie Chocolate. So right then and there, you know, this is where the chocolate making process, you know, the chocolate process at origin completes, and then it's now on to the chocolate makers wherever they are in the world. And so once you get your big bag of beans, or small, depending on the size of the maker, you have to sort beans. So we want to take out any additional you know, items that you may find. You know, there may be some jute bag pieces in there. There may be rocks. I've heard that there was somebody saw like a bullet in there, and you may ask yourself why, you know, why a bullet? But anybody at origin would like to increase the weight of their beans in order, you know, when they sell their beans, they're getting paid based on the weight. And so if they throw other stuff in there and it just is, you know, within the daily process, you know, they get bagged up, they're going to have whatever's in there go into that bag and be received. So we have to make sure that, you know, we're not having any foreign objects in there, because it will hurt our machines, you know, as we process them. So this is just a quick video of letterpress chocolate, how they sort their beans by hand, the fun process. And they're also taking out any beans that are clumped together. So that's important. If it's not properly fermented, or if it's partially fermented, it may have a different flavor than the properly fermented beans. So that's what they're looking for. Any broken pieces that don't look like they were properly fermented and dried, they take those out, and then they move on to the next step, and that is roasting. So there's different types of roasters. So when somebody starts off roasting, they could use a Baymore roaster. It's a small roaster that you could fit about 2 kilos in for what it's used for coffee bean roasting. However, it's been adapted to use for cacao, and it works great. And then once you grow on in size, you could use a convection oven like this. You have your sheet pans full of beans. You want to make sure that they're flat. You want to make sure that there's they're equal layer so that all the beans are properly roasted. Some use a convection oven, others use a drum roaster. And this is a little video clip of Goodnow Farms drum roaster. And so basically it's kind of like the Baymore, it's just that small drum roaster, but this is on a bigger scale, about like 30 pounds or so at a time. And so these beans are constantly turning, and there's the heat source in there. You can check the temperature, keep track of that. There's temperature probes that they use. And so, so once the beans come in and their test, basically there's tests that the chocolate maker will do. They will want to make sure that they bring out the best flavor in each of those beans. So after a couple of test runs, they'll figure out what profile they want and then tune their main roasts into that. So once the beans are roasted, they now need to be cooled down, and then they go through a process called winnowing. So basically the beans have to be cracked, and then they have to be taken apart. So I have a bean here. This is from the Semeliki forest in Uganda. So basically, you could winnow, basically crack and winnow by hand, but that would take a very long time. And so there's machines like this one here, where it's a handmade, pretty much handmade. Basically, there would be a juicer right in the left portion under that hopper, and basically that would you put in the beans from the top. It would go down into the grinder, and then it would go through this series of pipes. And there's an airflow attachment using like a dry vac. And basically you could regulate the airflow. And as you can see, when I crack this open, there's nibs, and then there's husks. And the husks are paper thin, and the nibs here, they have some weight to them. And so when you regulate the airflow, the nibs will go into one chute, and so that pipe that kind of facing down, it'll go right into there, and the husks will get blown and sucked into the compartment, and they are used for teas or mulch or thrown away, whatever the maker would like to do with it. So this is a bigger machine that could do about 30 pounds an hour, I believe. And so they're going in from the hopper, they're cracked, and then they are put through to the airflow portion. The cracking is done there, and there's several different levels, and there's vibrations that help with the separation. And so you have the collection of nibs here, and then the husks are kept in a bag on the back of the machine. And so once we have all of these nibs, this is what becomes chocolate. So the next slide here, we introduced the process of refining. So basically on this left side here is it's a near grinder. And so there's two wheels rotating at the same time on a wheel bed, right? Typically, that's how these work. And there's a tension knob, so you could keep the tension tight or loosen it a little bit. So basically, the goal of it is to break down the particle size of those nibs until you're at like maybe like a 20 micron level. So we're talking super small. But the interesting part about it is, when we taste anything with a 30 micron or higher like amount of particle size, we could taste it. It's gritty, or it'll like you could physically taste it on your palate. When there's a particle size of 20 microns or 30, less than 30 microns, it'll be very smooth. And so that's where our goal is, around 15 or so to 20 microns, and then we'll get that nice smooth chocolate. And then this is on the right side here, this is the DCM 100. It's the 100-pound machine from Diamond Custom Machines. And so this is, a batch and process. And this is when I was making a batch of chocolate at Indie Chocolate. I kind of use this as like a Zen thing. You can literally close your eyes and hear the cracking of the nibs, which is really quite soothing and fascinating. So this process usually takes up to a day or so, depending on your speed and the amount. And then you go into the conching part. The conching part is basically tension is released, so there's not like the wheel on stone friction, but yet there's like it's more of an airflow, and it rounds out the makeup of each of the chocolate particles. And so it basically aerates the chocolate, so it reduces all that vinegar smell that may be there still. It brings out all the flavors of those beans from origin. And then, and so once you have the chocolate, during this process, depending on depending on the recipe and whenever the chocolate maker would like to, add in their sugar, they would do that and refine it down. So, talking maybe a day or two in total. You want to move on to the next step is when we have to temper the chocolate. There's various ways of tempering chocolate as well. So this is when I used to have my own chocolate making company. Probably 4 years ago, I had hand tempered all my bars on a marble slab, and so this was kind of early in the days of me taking on chocolate. You can't temper chocolate in 5 minutes. You need time, you need temperature, and you need agitation. You need to keep working it, keep moving it. So as I'm moving it around, there's the coolness of the marble. That type of material helps for the decrease in the temperature, because you have to basically break down all of the cocoa butter fat in the chocolate, and then we have to put it all back together and form. There's 5 different levels. And so we want to make sure it's at a specific temperature range in which the particles are together and there's a nice shine and snap to it. And so, it's very laborsome if you're not super quick with it. There's other machines like this. This machine here is a continuous tempering machine, which means that everything is done automated through the pipes in the machine, and it basically outputs it. It still goes through the temperature range, and there's usually a larger quantity of chocolate in the machine. There's constant agitation, and then I think that machine holds over 100 to 200 tons, I believe. And so so this is the process of Goodnow Farms when they made their previous molded bars. And so this is a great example of each step of the process. So they have it, and so their molds are here. They're able to output some chocolate, specific dosage, and put on a vibrating table. And when that does is releases all the air bubbles, and then it kind of settles in, and then that's when they're put into a walk-in, a refrigerator, somewhere where they can cool down. This is another cool way to mold up chocolate bars by letterpress. They used for quite some time. They used a syringe. There's a specific amount that they pull in, and they output it into a mold, put it on a vibrating table, and then they cool it down. And so once the bars are cooled down, they are able to retract from the mold. If everything is proper, if the chocolate's in proper temper, they will then come right out, as you'll see. So there's that, and there's a nice shine, and when you would break that bar, it would have a nice snap to it as well. So this is also a very important part of the process is, how do you wrap up the bars? Nowadays, some makers are just using clear bags to put in the chocolate and seal it. A lot of people still use foil wrapping. And so this is just kind of the tedious process that goes into making sure that the bar itself looks pretty for the end consumer.
I use that line as a joke because when I was
It's a very
Emerson, I worked at a local production
tedious
here
process,
in Malta.
but they look great when they come out.
Different assignments for national shows, like Entertainment Tonight. So we went out and we shot behind the scenes at School Ties, which was shot at some school up in like, I don't know. Well, it was shot here. So somewhere around here. So I went to the set, and
There we go.
the AD.
So from that point on, they would be shipped out or put in their retail shops or sold directly on websites, and then get into the hands of the consumer. And that completes the process. So at this point, I've gone through the entire process from origin all the way through the packaging. Does anybody have any questions around the process?
I had one question.
Sure.
When it's fermenting, what's the point of moving it from one bin to the next?
So you basically need to make sure that the specific reactions that are taking place take place over time, and so it needs to happen at, like, if it were to stay in that one box, then it may not, like, you need to keep moving it to a different environment, so that it's all happen, like all the hundreds of pounds of beans in those boxes, that that reaction is actually happening. So that's kind of a way just to move the beans around so that the entire process is happening for every single bean, no bean left behind. And there's other processes where there's a box, it's kind of like a step. 3 are step by step by step. And so you start at 1, and then you move, it's just easier. You just scoop it down into the next box and then go down the step and go down and put it into the next box. So it's a very laborsome process that's quite possibly the most one of the most important parts of the process. And anybody else have any other questions? No? All right. Oh, wait. Yes. All right, Wendy, what's your question?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, there are a couple actually. So one of them is one patient of ours who was in the industry. She was saying that cacao has to be sprayed when it's imported. Are you familiar with that, and what's going on with that?
Yeah, so depending on how the beans come in, we don't want any moth activity, and so I believe it's like nitrogen that's being sprayed. I remember years back I went to Michigan for a class with Mindo chocolate makers. This is maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, and basically they would bring in beans from Ecuador and they would have to spray them so that before they would buy bulk beans to sell in smaller packages. So when you spray it, you're killing off anything that may grow, right? Any moth activity, infestation, it kills it. So that's why they spray it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think she was saying that it was actually a type of pesticide and that it's required to be sprayed to come in. And so there was something about people making the bars overseas and then bringing them in because they didn't have to be sprayed, as opposed to people who are bringing the seeds in and so forth. So that was where I was not clear on that.
Yeah, and it depends on the maker and the origin where they're buying the beans from. Sometimes, some makers are so small that they have to work with middlemen, kind of like our cacao import companies. Some are Uncommon Cacao, Meridian Cacao, Chocolate Alchemy. They buy beans in bulk. And as far as the pesticide spray, I've never had experience with that. So I'm not as familiar as other makers, depending on where they get those beans from.
Okay, thanks. The other question is about I think it's cadmium and lead were
Yeah.
found at pretty high levels in chocolates, and particularly a number of the organic chocolates had really high levels of cadmium in them, and some of them higher levels of lead. Do you have any idea where that's coming from? Is that from the manufacturing process? Is that from where that's being grown?
Yeah. Yep. So in specific regions, and I believe it's within the ground. It's basically the dirt holds the whatever is happening around in the atmosphere and in the area. That's where the cadmium is being kind of passed through to the cacao. Yeah, and so there's regions where there's a higher level than others, but I know in California that it's a major topic. I think it was like Prop 65, if I'm not mistaken, where they have to make sure they say like you may be exposed to cadmium because it's like the amount in the chocolate is very minimal, but in some regions it's a lot more, but it's still like if you're having a chocolate bar from that region, it's not going to be bad for you. If you're having a lot of it, that's when I believe it gets really bad.
Yeah, they actually had one of these companies, it was Lab something, assayed a bunch of chocolate bars. And so they actually found pretty significantly high levels, like not safe levels in a number of the bars. And I was just very surprised that they were, a number of them were the organic bars that they were finding problems with. I didn't know, yeah, again, if it was machinery or soil, but thank you for answering that. I guess it's mostly soil is what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's exactly what it's like. What's going on at the origin that sometimes we can't really help. but a lot of the, like when the beans are transported, there's a lot of transparency around that, so that the makers know, is there a lot, should they be worried about it, or they have the testing done at origin. If they're doing like a direct trade with a cooperative in particular, and if they're that middle like cacao import company, they may already have those results, because they're definitely um, housing all the transparency data at this point.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for the questions. Anybody else? Anybody have any other questions that they'd like to share or comments they'd like to share before we move on? No? All right. So the next part, I just want to touch briefly on chocolate bar packaging. We have 4 bars here that we're about to dive into. I just want to bring to a little a little short discussion around what's the importance of how a chocolate bar is wrapped. Um, you know, we're always told, like, don't judge a book by its cover, and sometimes people say that about chocolate, like, don't judge the chocolate by their packaging, especially when people are starting out, and then as they grow, their packaging grows with them. So I have some various packages here from some of the makers, and you could see that there's different aspects. There's a different style. There's a different story, and everybody has their own special uniqueness. So as you see here, Dick Taylor, and even with the Dick Taylor bar, we have this one is a Brazil here, and so they have like a theme. Their theme is carpentry. Both the 2 makers, they're carpenters by trade, and they became chocolate makers, and so they have that theme throughout their packaging. And so they also talk about the locations on the back. They have some flavor notes that you may taste, and then additional details about the ingredients. You also have on the flip side, colorful packaging. You have Raka and Soma, where it's visually pleasing to the eye, and they still have the location, the origin. They have the cacao percentage, any certifications, any awards that they make, that they may have received. They're putting that on there to showcase, and it's a very eye-pleasing experience. When you look at Potomac, they've since this is a fairly, like, maybe like a year or 2 older. This bar, they've recently just changed out their craft packaging, but they'd still have the same fun, like, fish theme. And so they're based in Woodbridge, Virginia, which is well, now they moved, but basically originally they're in Woodbridge, and they're by the Potomac River. So that whole fish theme plays through, and so their molds have fish on it, and it's really quite pleasing. It's really nice mold. And on the back, they tell their story. They tell a little bit about the chocolate and what you may experience with it, as well as like the ingredients and the percentage and location of the beans, where they're from. And also, scanning down, white label chocolate, they bring about a very sophisticated, sleek, simplistic packaging. You have Castronovo, where they kind of entice you with their inclusion bar, like this lemon white chocolate with lemon oil and lemon sea salt. From that image, you're going to get a very lemon forward experience. You're going to see what's going to be there, and it's actually one of my favorite white chocolate bars. It's a very good bar. And on the back, they talk about their story, the story of the lemons connection, that connection to who they are as a family, and it's really nice. Dandelion, they have their own textile, wrapping, which I believe is based on local artists, and they have their story of, who made the profile, the beans, roast profile. They talk about the beans, where they're located, where they're from, and some other information about the percentage, the origin, etc. And then lastly, Maru, like their bar wrapper color scheme is based on the cacao pods that they're using from that specific region. So this particular one is from lamb dung, and those pods are bluish in color. I know someplace there's online, if you Google it, there's a picture of the bar and the cacao pod. So you can see that like each pod is a different shade, a different color, and the wrapping color scheme coincides with it, which is a real nice touch. And these folks are based in Vietnam, and so there's on the back there's some information around the Vietnamese cacao. So I just want to pose the question, what do you look for in a chocolate bar? When you go to make a purchase, what are you looking for? What things attract you? Anybody want to share? No, it's okay if you don't want to. It's all good. All right, so Wendy's said, we don't like plastic. All right. And that you're talking about the wrapper, like that it's in a plastic wrapper? Got it. Yeah. Yep. And so you have like your plastic wrappers inside that you just tear it, is not resealable. Then you have your foil wrapping, or you have a pouch, kind of like the Potomac one, where it's resealable. Most of these now they have kind of like a bag, sustainable or sustainable bag where you could zip it closed and you could just throw it into the outer fold. Got it. Yeah. You don't know where the plastic is coming from. Totally makes sense. Yep. Exactly. We don't trust the plastic materials touching the chocolate. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Thanks for sharing that. All right. So we're going to move on to the tasting portion. I know that you guys are patiently waiting for the main event. And so I want to pose a question and hear from a few of you. Why taking the time to mindfully taste chocolate is something that is important? If you have that, if you agree with that. Mark's shaking his head. Yes, he agrees. Yeah. So for me, why we mindfully taste chocolate is to take in the special flavors that cacao produces. So as you've seen the first half of this tasting experience, like you could see how many people are involved. You can see how much work goes in on a daily basis to bring that chocolate to life, to have those special flavor profiles. And so even if it's just taking a few extra moments to taste, then we're able to really understand and appreciate that chocolate even more. So what we have, what you've had in your tasting kits is your tasting guide and your tasting sheet. So for the tasting guide, I'm just going to run through it real quick, give you an overview, and then we'll get right into the chocolate portion. So this is a very simple 4-step process that it's not earth-shattering. It's quite simple and approachable. And so when we go and look at a piece of chocolate. So we want to identify what the color of it is. Most dark chocolate's going to be in the dark brown, medium brown range, and milk chocolate's going to be medium to light brown, just by the sheer nature. However, the varieties of chocolate affect the coloring, like that, how brown it is. Dark chocolate with a higher percentage may be darker than cacao percentage less, right? You're talking like 80s versus like 70s. But it's also depending on the region where cacao is where cacao grows, and the variety where it could be actually lighter. So we are basically just identifying it to appreciate what that color is. The next step is breaking the chocolate. So we want to make sure it's a well-tempered chocolate bar. Are we going to get a really great loud snap? And that's the sound of the temper. And so we have icons there that you could circle on your tasting sheets. Where is it a loud snap or is it a dull snap? So we'll get to see these bars, how well their temper is. After we break the piece off, break the piece in half, we want to smell the aromas. So we want to bring it to our nose and basically take in some sniffs, quick sniffs, and basically what flavors are being triggered in our head, in our brains. And then lastly, we'll taste the piece. We'll bite it once or twice, move it around, aerate your mouth once or twice, open it up. Like you don't have to like purposefully do it, but unconsciously you could just open your mouth once or twice and aerate that chocolate as it melts around in your mouth. And then lastly, we'll be looking, this is just tentatively, some of the flavors that you may taste. And there's categories and there's examples. Not every flavor is on this list. There's over 600 chemical compounds that produce a specific flavor. And so when we taste, it's not like, there's no right or wrong answer. It's your own experience. So I want you to all understand that. And that's the uniqueness about this experience, because it could also evoke memories for you. And so that's like one of the discussion points, that if that chocolate takes you back to a specific memory or a specific moment. My first really like chocolate career defining moment was when I tasted a chocolate bar from Madre Chocolate in Hawaii. They're based in Hawaii. It was a Dominican Republic bar. I tasted it and it tasted kind of like malted milk. And it took me back to being a child. And when I was young, my uncle used to live with us. And on Saturdays, he would make Ovaltine, that malted milk drink. And so he would make those drinks for me, and that would be like breakfast, part of my breakfast in the mornings. And it was a nice treat. And so when I had that bar, probably about 5 years ago, I was taken back to that moment and was like, wow, I never knew chocolate could taste like this. And from that point on, I was hooked, and here I am today. So it doesn't have to be as life defining of a moment like that. It could be a simple but it's pretty cool just to see what comes to mind when you're actually just taking in the moments and tasting. Right before we get into the next bar, the first bar will, you also have the tasting sheet where you could jot down some notes around the maker, the origin, the percentage, the color, snap, aroma, what flavors you're tasting, the experiences that you're having, any notes, and if you want to rate it. So this is just so, if you want to, keep your notes, it's really cool. You could just do it on the sheet. So with that being said, I think it's time to dive right into the first bar. So if you have your bars handy, the first bar is the Mocha Origins bar. This is a 72% from Ghana. Whoa, dropping it, getting excited. So basically, it's from Suhun, Ghana. They work with the ABO CFA, ABO CFA. I don't know how to actually pronounce that as a acronym, but basically they work. They're basically organic fair trade cooperative, and Mocha Origins is very active in Africa. They've worked with putting together a farm in Cameroon, where they've worked with the locals to create a sustainable business model to plant cacao and grow it and harvest it. And so they wanted to move into Africa and work with the folks at the cooperative to highlight Guyanese chocolate. So basically, you could bring up a piece of the chocolate. See, they have what's really cool is they have on the molds they have their logo and cacao pods, and so they also are. If you notice, they're also there's cacao pods and coffee beans. I wanted to just point out that they also do coffee roasting as well. So they're kind of getting coffee beans and cacao from the regions that they work with. So it's really nice full experience. So 72%. So this means that there's 72% cacao, so cacao and cocoa butter fat in the bar. And I don't think there is any additional cocoa butter. There is additional cocoa butter. So that additional cocoa butter is within that 72%. And then the remaining portion is sugar, organic cane sugar. And so, yeah, so we can see it's a fairly dark bar, dark brown. So, we'll use this as a baseline for the remaining bars. But yeah, so we now identify the color. So what next? We want to just hear a snap. So everybody want you to snap their piece and just share how loud that snap is. Here's mine. Pretty loud, right? So how loud was it for you guys? Todd said it's pretty loud. Yep. So it's a sign of a pretty good temper. So now we go on to the next step, which is taking in the aromas. So bring it up to your nose, take in quick sniffs. Don't be bashful to get it all up in your nose. Sometimes, I find I get chocolate on my nose and I'm doing a tasting and there's chocolate on my nose. So if I do have any, just, put in the comments, like I have chocolate on my nose. So take in the aromas and share what are you smelling? What are you identifying? So I'm getting a really rich cocoa note. This is a Forastero variety, which is the variety largely grown in Africa, and so yeah, I'm getting that chocolatey note that's kind of reminiscent of it. Wendy says sweat. Interesting. I don't know what sweat. Well, it's quite interesting. Sweat. All right. Well, we'll move on and see if you taste it. So at this point, we could break it, and if you want to break it into a smaller piece, or just put it in your mouth, and then I'll just give you guys a moment, and then you could just put in the comments or share what your flavor notes are what are the flavors that you're actually tasting. Mm. All right. Interesting notes coming in. All right. So Todd's group is saying honey and fudge. Wendy's group is saying carbon. Interesting. Mark, it's okay. You can go home and taste it. So Wendy's group is saying slight peanut butter. Yeah. So it's interesting, the carbon note. Can you describe that? Because I'm not sure. I never experienced what carbon tastes like. That would be interesting to share with everybody. But you know, Todd's group saying honey and fudge. Yeah, I was getting a lot of that fudge, that rich fudgy note, and there's like that little hint of sweetness to it. And I also wrote down there was like a nuttiness to it, like nuts, like roasted nuts. All right, so Wendy's group said maybe like a coal, like coal. Yeah, all right. So interesting. It's interesting. Is there any like memory or something that evoked that for you? Okay, okay. So maybe that's if it's like over roasted, potentially, that's kind of like that. Yeah, got it. All right, it's cool. It's interesting how you connect the possibility of it being like a little bit over roast or like a higher roast profile to it being like reminiscent of like coal or carbon. Interesting. I like that. I like how it like it makes you think. Do either of you have like a science background? Wendy. Wendy's group says we own a coal mine. There you go. So it's evoking that the relationship that you have with that like over like burning note, right? Or you may just have lots of coal fumes still, you know, within your nasal passage. Who knows? But it's really cool how it, like you can connect like your daily experiences with, you know, how you taste your chocolate. Oh, come on. Nice one. Nice one. All right. Okay, medical field. Okay, cool. All right. So the next bar, let's bring it up on the screen. We're going to be tasting the Dick Taylor bar, the 72% from Toledo, Belize. Here you go. All right. Oh, just before, I just wanted to point out one note. The bean variety on that last bar was a Melanado, not Forastero. Melanado is it's kind of just like a similar offspring of that variety. Still has that like chocolatey base type of a profile, which also has your nutty nuts and stuff like and flavors like that come out. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out. And you can see on the wrapper, Their tasting profile says velvety dark chocolate with subtle notes of carob, raisin, and peanut butter. So I think we're pretty much on point outside of carob, which I never had before. I don't know what that is. But yeah, just want to make that quick point before we move on to the next one. All right. So with Dick Taylor, they are this is a 2-ingredient chocolate. So we're basically getting cocoa beans and cane sugar, organic cane sugar, 72% solid, 18% sugar. Awesome, Mark. Yeah, Dick Taylor is they're Mark's favorite maker. Totally agree. So I already have this bar, been eating away at this bar already. But you can see on the full bar that you have in front of you, the very intricacies of the mold, which is really nice. You can still see this nice shine. And then obviously we want to look at the shades, which is darker. And I believe in my light that the Dick Taylor is a little bit lighter. What do you guys think? Yeah, Todd agrees. All right, so I'm going to just break a piece off here. So we'll hear our snap. There you go. That's a loud snap. What do you guys think? Did you get a supersonic boom? And then you got a boom, Wendy's group. All right, nice. All right, so as we take it up to our nose, what's the aroma like for you guys? Yeah, Todd points out, makes a good point. It's not scored like the other bar. Correct. So a lot of makers, as they develop and grow, they tend to do custom molds. And so they may, brand it with their logo, or it's their own kind of personality on the bar, basically. And so when people start out making chocolate, they may just have a generic mold. Some would break off pieces, some with bigger pieces. There's so many different varieties of the mold. All right, so let's go in for the aromas and see. With Wendy's group, one says cinnamon, another person says cardboard. All right. I get like a fudge, like I still get like a cocoa base note. Todd gets wood, tobacco, and brownie notes. Interesting. Yeah, Todd, I mean, Mark, we could talk about that after in a few moments once we taste it. All right, so let's go in for it and see what everybody tastes. Yeah. I'm liking these responses already. Yeah. Yeah. So these are all like really great responses. Todd and his group is getting a really fruity experience, cranberry notes, which is really interesting. That tartness is just like all over the place. Yeah, totally. That's why I'm saying the Todd's group, you and your wife. What Wendy was saying, Wendy's group, they're saying that the mouthfeel, like the melt, is much more pleasant than the first one. And that's due to how they process their chocolate, the machinery that they use. So Wendy's group, they brought up tart, that they're experiencing tartness, smoke, cherry, creamy cherry. Quite interesting. Yeah, Belize is a very bright origin, so you're going to get a lot of red fruit notes coming from it, which makes it very it's one of my favorite ones when I'm looking for a really fruity bar. But yeah, so to bring out a point with the the mouthfeel being so different than the first one is their Dictator is in a little bit of a larger scale than Mocha Origins. So they put their chocolate through a roll mill. And so they basically have a machine, there's rolls, like these massive cylinders. And so they're spaced apart. There's maybe like 3 or 5, depending on what machine they may have. And they program it to be a specific micron level apart. And so, they may have, I believe they may have a refiner as well. But they have multiple steps in the process, or they may have a different type of refiner called a ball mill, where there's like metal balls that basically help with breaking down the micron size. And so, with some of these refining processes, there may be uneven particle reduction, right? So this may get a little nerdy and sciencey here, but basically with the roll mill though, they pour the chocolate on there and it is a uniform reduction of particle size. And so that makes it, ensure that all the particles are within that 15 to 20 micron level range, wherever they decide on that's most optimal for the experience they want to give their consumers. So basically, it's all smooth, and that mouthfeel is just, it provides that luxury. It's that smoothness. And, it's interesting how the mouthfeel is so smooth. But when you the whole purpose of adding cocoa butter, right? How we saw with mocha, they have that additional cocoa butter fat is supposed to provide a more fattier texture, right? A more luxurious mouthfeel. However, the means by which Dick Taylor processes, they've actually mimicked that experience without adding in cocoa butter. So that's kind of a little deeper dive into why that mouthfeel is so so amazing compared to the prior one that we had. So Mark had pointed out a question, and he's not at his computer. However, we could talk about this after the tasting is over if you want, Mark. But we'll just move on to the next one. All right. Well, Mark, you're back. So if it's okay, Mark, we'll talk about the Dick Taylor question that you had around over melanging. If you want to do it after we taste the fourth bar, we could talk about it at the end. All right, so the third bar that we're going to talk through and taste is Fresco. They're based in Linden, Washington. And so they have a unique method of making chocolate. So Rob and his wife, Amy, they are a husband and wife business. He's been around for quite some time. And have to really open this up. Here we go. So what's unique about this? So this is Polochic Valley, Guatemala. And so when Rob makes his bars for a specific origin, he does different recipes. So he has like this like itch to experience chocolate in various ways. Like you have one bean and he wants to show different interpretations based on the roast time, like based on the type of roast and based on the type of conch. So those were two important parts of the process, to refine down and to aerate and round out those particles. So with this bar, he has a light, medium, and dark roast with specific conch levels, specific conch timings. And so in the bar wrapper, you can see how he has those laid out, how his recipes are created. So you can read more about that. But with this Guatemala, this is a specific 70%. So 30% sugar, 70%. Don't think he adds additional cocoa butter. Yeah, he does actually. So he adds additional cocoa butter. So you can see here, he uses his own logo on the mold. And if we were to look at comparison, because this is fairly dark, if we compare it to the mocha bar, I think it's quite on par. What do you guys think? And you just compare it to the Dick Taylor as well. It's maybe a little bit darker than the Dick Taylor. All right, so we're gonna take it and go in for the snap. There you go. It's pretty decent size, decent snap. And let's go in for the aromas. All right. All right, so Wendy's group is saying one smells fruity notes and another one smells rubber. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I'm not getting that much of a rubbery note. And then, so here's a little trick that if you're not smelling anything initially, you may want to just rub the chocolate with your finger. And basically that helps melt the chocolate a little bit at our own temperature. And then you're able to, the cocoa butter fat is released. And so some of those aromas will be a lot easier to pick up. So Todd's saying, Todd's group is saying, Amy's smelling tropical notes while he's experiencing earthy notes. Interesting. And Wendy's group is saying rubbery, like a scuba wetsuit. Interesting. And of course, I'm getting like a chocolate base note. All right, so once we're ready, you can go right in for the taste. Mm. Interesting. I like these notes that are coming through. So Todd's group Todd's picking up a very sweet taste experience. It's not as fruity as the other ones, which makes sense. Guatemala is not super fruity. Amy's saying citrus, and then Wendy's group is bringing up mint and spearmint, which is interesting. So I'm getting like a very mellow note. Like it's not like overpowering flavor, but it's like kind of subtle. And I could see how like so Todd is also saying that it definitely tastes more sugary than first one to me. Exactly. So that note is there is 2% more sugar in the first in this one, this bar than the first two. So we hit on two 72%. And now we're decreasing the amount of sugar. And so the so this is now you're experiencing like it's a little bit too sweet, right? Because you're not used to all the sugar, and now it's like, whoa, there's more sugar. And we don't do it the opposite way, because the experience, if we had a bar that was less than 70%, meaning there's more sugar, there's more apt that our palate's going to get, fatigued with the sugar particles, right? And so that experience that you're having with, it's a little bit sweeter, yeah, it's going to be a little bit sweet, and so a bit over sweet, that could be the experience of additional a lot of additional cocoa butter as well, potentially. It's fattier, there's more sugar to the mix, so that's how it appears for you, and that's totally fine. Yeah, so maybe that's why it tastes more commercial than the others. Yeah. So far, we have still have the fourth bar, which is an inclusion bar, but yeah, that's that's just it depends on your own experiences. That's what's unique and fun about this is trying to figure out why am I thinking it, why am I experiencing it this way, and also what's triggering me to think of it in a certain way. So yeah. All right, so that was the fresco bar. Right, so next we'll go into the last bar, which is the letterpress amaranth crunch. So this is an inclusion bar. I'm also going to have some water too. I sometimes don't play by the rules that I share to cleanse your palate between each bar. Basically, that helps with it keeps our mouth hydrated. But as a palate cleanser, you could use crackers, like water crackers, kind of like these here. If you have any of these, you could use them. They're not the most optimal per some professionals who taste for some of the award ceremonies. They choose to use soupy polenta, and that basically helps help release any additional cocoa butter fat that's still lying in your mouth. It takes it away. But yeah, it's if you have that, you can go right ahead and use you have taste a piece of cracker between it. Also, the water should be room temperature. I've also experienced people would like to use like lemon water. That's up to you. I just use regular water. It doesn't really affect that much with the entire palate cleansing process, but it's something to help wash away any remnants of any of the the palate cleanser, whether it's the polenta or crackers that we use. All right, so as I open up this bar, this letterpress bar, so I know that Wendy's group already experienced letterpress, but here's their bar mold. It's really past like year or so, they've redid their molds, and this kind of is exactly their logo, but on the bar, and it's quite intricate, which is something that I really like about their bars now. So the as far as the shade is concerned, this is a 70% bar. So when we compare it to, this is the comparison to the Guatemala bar. This Ghana bar is much lighter. Its base is Ashanti Ghana. So basically, you'll have the flavor profile of the African chocolate, and then they put in puffed amaranth. So they don't roast it; they just pop it. They basically put it on a pan and puff it, and they add some sea salt inside. So what we'll experience is a little different than the 3 single origin bars, where there's no texture in there. We're now experiencing the chocolate with an inclusion. So with this, we could break a piece off, and we could hear a loud snap there. And what's really cool, I'm going to break this again to get it up close and personal. They do a really great job of incorporating in the puffed amaranth and the sea salt. You could totally see it, and it's really quite nice. And it's Dave has told me how it's quite the most tedious tempering process that they use, because they have to mix it in and then dose it out. So it's quite interesting. But yeah, so with the snap and that and the aromas, what are you guys experiencing? Yeah, Todd saying cocoa. Wendy's just probably dove right in already. Yeah, so I'm getting like a roasty note, like a roasted nut note, but it's not nuts. It's just like that roasty note, not overly roasty, but just like roasted, like something's roasted. And then cocoa note, like Todd's group said. So let's go right in. Mm-hmm. All right. Anxiously awaiting Todd's group tasting notes, but for Wendy's group, so sorry that she had to go. So they pointed out it was the most complex bar, which I totally agree. So their side said nutty, fruity, salty flavors change as it's in the mouth significantly, and also acai. Yeah, so there's a wide complexity to it. You have your nutty notes. You have the flecks of salt. Like you just get that salty burst, but you get that like the roasted. It's kind of like I connected to an adult version of a Nestle's Crunch bar growing up. Like I used to like those. It wasn't my favorite, like the top favorite, but it was like it was cool. Like you had like a bar that was just like really crunchy. Um, so you know, it just provided like a really fun experience when having a bar. And when I always taste this, it's always like I always just sit back and just enjoy it and take it in. And I sometimes just have the whole bar at one sitting, like at a time. It's ridiculous, but yeah. So Todd's group said fruity. The salt is only in places. So occasionally you get a grain, but not all the time. Yep, that's like the really cool part about it, that they sprinkle it in, and it's not like a salted chocolate, right? It's like sporadic, and your focus is on the amaranth, and your focus on the Ghana. That chocolatey base is kind of what's quite interesting. And yeah, so Todd's group says little free notes coming through. Yeah, um, and then after like towards the end, it's a little nutty. Yeah, that's all the that nuttiness is coming from that puffed. When the amaranth is being puffed, which is quite interesting. Um, yeah, so Wendy's group is saying like a nut butter. That exactly. Yep. So it's quite an interesting bar, and the thought process around having this is we've tasted one Ghana bar, want to just throw in a little fun with an inclusion bar, and this one kind of just rang a bell. It's a very approachable bar. It's very reminiscent of what we normally have in our childhood. So yeah, so those are the 4 bars. Um, and I would like to see which which bar was your favorite. And so with this, I have a poll. I'm going to launch it, and you should see it on your screens right now. And feel free to vote. All right. So, all right. So, I know Mark didn't taste the bars. I don't know if you voted or if you want to vote. Um, you're gonna go home and you're gonna enjoy this yourself. All right. So we have multiple votes. Okay. So here we go. Ending the poll, and so we have additional votes in the chat box. So I'm going to just tally these up real quick. So 1, 2. So there's 2 for Dick Taylor, 1 for Fresco, and Letterpress 1. So Dick Taylor. So okay. So this is where I haven't put in my guess yet. Letterpress 2. All right, so there's multiple others as well. So there's 1 for Dick Taylor, 2 for Letterpress. So Letterpress comes out with, so Dick Taylor and Letterpress. So it's a tie, and then and 1 vote for Fresco. So basically, I would think I make Letterpress my favorite. So so I guess we can say Letterpress is the winner. And then Mark, you could always share after the fact what you'll let me know what you preferred out of all these. It would be pretty interesting to hear what you have to say. Yeah, thanks, Todd. Todd mentioned they were all really good. So yeah, I really appreciate that. So I'm going to share these results, even though they're not full results. But yeah. All right. So I'm going to quickly just stop that share. And I'm going to minimize this. All right. So I want to just, in the last few moments, just thank you all for coming and attending. Appreciate it. Thanks, Wendy's group. And so I'm going to send out an email right this moment to you, to all of you. And so basically, it is a link to the to a little survey, feedback survey, because I want to just ensure that I'm doing what I set out to do, that everybody's enjoying their experience. So this just gaining some feedback from all of you on your experience. So if there are multiple people where you are, feel free to do multiple submissions. This was like a really great experience with all of you. I enjoyed the entire time. And it was really great to get the experiences, what you were tasting and how, it could be totally different from the next person in what they shared. So Todd mentioned, thank you. This is a fun way to spend an afternoon. Wendy's group mentioned great mixture of education and bars that helped with some learning of different techniques. Yeah, and that's my goal, is to ensure that you're getting some education around what makes the chocolate, that final product. So you can go back and like be super like knowledgeable to your friends and like show off to them and be like, hey, did you ever try this bar? It's really good. And you know why it tastes that way, or you know why this particular bar is better than this bar, is because they use a different type of technique. That type of stuff is really fun. And if you tend to be on the nerdy side with chocolate or food, that's something fun. If you're not that nerdy with food and stuff, that's cool. You could just show off to your friends and family, but also share these experiences with them. So all of you should have already had the access to the members area of my website, chocotastery.com/members-area. You can go in and download a PDF copy of the tasting guide and tasting sheet if you want to, print it out or whatever. You can go right ahead and do that. So if you ever need any help with that, just reply to the email I just sent, and I can make sure that you can get in there. Just a couple other things. Feel free to follow us on social media. We're at Chocotastery on Instagram and Facebook. We have our YouTube channel. I just did an unboxing of a couple of seasonal bars from Dick Taylor. So if you haven't seen that, definitely go check it out. I have 3 or 4 more coming. They're on my list. So an unboxing from Letterpress, Good Now Farms, Crow and Moss, and Dandelion. So I have a bunch of videos coming and content there. And we have virtual tasting. So if you ever have to, give a gift and would like to give this as a gift to somebody, you could always do that. We're having a pretty big, what do you call that? What's coming up? Black Friday on next Friday, a Black Friday sale. So that is going to be a bigger percentage off. So if you want to get any of these classes for any gifts for the holidays, you could do that. We usually run these every other week now. If you know anybody who wants to do it as like a private event, that'd be great. You can put them in touch with us. I have some bars up for sale on the shop, chocotastery.shop. If you're interested, if you're looking for a specific bar, let me know. And so Todd's commenting, all right, so I remember tasting a lot of floral notes in the cacao bars, not so much today, maybe a little in the DT. the Dick Taylor. Is that expected, or am I just missing it? So that's a good point, Todd. So so those the bars from Cacao, they're Dominican Republic. That's a Dominican Republic origin. So it's a different type of variety of chocolate. So we didn't have a Trinitario variety. At least I don't think we did. But their chocolate from all those various regions in the DR tends to be a lot more fruit forward. And so that's why, it's not wrong that you didn't experience a lot of fruitiness. The Ghana bars, they're Melanado variety, Forastero variety. So those bars are going to have a more chocolatey note and more, nuttier if it's roasted at a higher temperature. But yeah, so it varies based on the variety. So Amy wants to know who had the lemon white chocolate bar, Castronova. Yes. So Castronova chocolate, they're based in Stuart, Florida. They make that bar. It's white chocolate, lemon, and sea salt, and it's fantastic. I don't even have any with me. I need to get some for future tastings. But it is really an amazing experience. If you want to reach out to them, pick one up during the holidays. It's really, you can't go wrong with it. If you like lemon, it's amazing. Yeah, no problem, Mark. Appreciate you coming by and just sitting in. And would love to hear your feedback as well once you go through the bars yourself. So yeah, so Castronovo, definitely check them out. If you ever had like those lemon drop candies, that's exactly what that's that the memory that's picked up for me. Yes, your question on Dick Taylor, Mark. So you had mentioned that they've received complaints about Dick Taylor over melanging. I mean, it's tough to tell because they're not like the particle size, like it's not like a sticky particle size. So when you over refine, you get that like stickiness. So I don't know if it's, yeah. So maybe it's batch to batch different. Some people feel that it's slimy and love it. You love it. Yeah, I really enjoy their chocolate. It's really interesting. They tend to have really great flavor profiles. They conch enough that it really brings out the flavors. And the interesting part is that their techniques, they don't have like extra added cocoa butter. So it's interesting how they get that flavor experience. So Todd saying, I thought it was creamy or like butter. He still liked it. Yeah. So it's quite interesting. Like what are your thoughts, Mark, on it?
I guess I was going to just say, I wouldn't say I still liked it. I was saying it was actually a positive for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Mark saying super creamy and smooth. Yeah. So I've seen a virtual tour through the Stay Home with Chocolate Festival that the team walked through their factory and the machinery. So it's like they're at a higher scale too. So they have things dialed in, and that's just their method, their like personality in a chocolate bar. Like that's their experience that they want to share. And so, I mean, I don't really, I don't think I've ever had that complaint that it was slimy. I will say what's interesting is there's two bars that just came out, the milk chocolate bars, the hazelnut and um, uh, the vanilla milk chocolate. And when I tasted it, it's like the dairy, that A2A2 milk that they put in, it gives it like, it's really decadent mouthfeel where it's like really, really tough to like get through. And I think like that may be where people may have those types of complaints. Because I did point out when I did my unboxing how I never had that experience, but there was a seasonal bar that had milk in there with ginger, like the ginger snap pieces. And I was still getting that same experience. And I think it's because of that dairy, the milk powder that they put in. But that was the only time I've ever had it where it was so tough to get through. And that's probably where that, I don't know if it's like they're over refining, over melanging. I don't know if it's that part of the process that's affecting it that way. Yeah, I think so too, Todd. The Wendy's team, Wendy's team. Yeah, they did like it a lot. But yeah, it's quite interesting. You know, how you could kind of like dive deep into each bar. Yeah. So with that, I think we're pretty much set. I want to thank you all again for taking the time out of your Saturdays to join us for this experience.
Yeah, thank you.
And Todd, where are you based?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, right? Okay, got it.
And where are you?
I'm in Hoboken, New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Been
Yep.
to Hoboken several times.
Yep.
Maxwell's shut, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, they closed down. Though I never been there. Actually, I lived in Hoboken for like 7 or 8 years, and then I moved to Seattle for that bit, like for like 7, 8 months, and then I came back. I was with my parents in Jersey for a bit, and then moved to Jersey City. Was there for 2 years, and now I'm back in Hoboken, like up the block from where I used to live, and it's now a whole better setup. I have you know, better video equipment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a better experience. I love it here in Hoboken.
Yeah, my old college roommate lives in East Linden, I think. Is that right? Can't keep that straight, not too far away.
Yeah. Cool. I went to Scranton for college, University of Scranton. So it's kind of like the opposite side of the state, but still PA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Todd. Appreciate it. And looking forward to hearing your feedback in the feedback survey that you should have in your inbox.
Cool.
Thank you.
Right.
All right, Mark. Mark, I'm gonna sign off. I know you're busy, but I think we're good here. Do you have any other questions? Bye, Mark. Looking forward to hearing from you.